Check, check, check. 1, 2. Oh, that's a great chord. How's everyone doing? Hope you're doing well, having a great week. Hope everyone's had a great week. How you doing, Red? Nice to see you. And also, finally, nice to meet you as well. Had a great chat with you the other day, man. Welcome, everyone, to Livestream number 19. And which is crazy, and it's June. Like, where did the beginning of the year go? I feel like we're still like in January or February. But anyway, I'm just kind of getting going with some playing here. And whoever comes in, you got any questions or anything about bass playing, just drop it down in the chat. And because this is such a nerd bass hang, and this is what it's all about. Just having fun playing bass, talking about bass, anything to do with bass playing in music. So if you have any questions about equipment, concepts, techniques, gigs, the music industry that involves bass playing, anything to do with it, pop it down in the chat. Let's get the conversation going. Do I know Hadrian Farode? Yes, I do. I know Hadrian Farode. We've been buddies for, oh man, like a little over 10 years now. We've, hung out a lot, and we've even played together a few times. And we just messaged each other not too long ago as well. But yeah, Hadrian was someone that I first heard when I was 18, with his debut album came out. And this is like back when we were all using MySpace. Who here was using MySpace? That was the first time I saw or heard Hadrian Farode, and I was just like, whoa, who's this player that just playing just ridiculous, like really fast, clean lines. And then he moved to LA not long after I had moved to LA, and so I used to go see him play quite a lot. Just wherever he was playing, it was like Baked Potato or Cafe Cordial. That was another place. And just over time, with me showing up to a lot of his gigs and these jam sessions and all that, we became friends. And so it was always great to see him play and just witness that level of playing, which was really cool. And yeah, for a long time I was definitely listening to a lot of him. A lot of his first album, like I said, I listened to a lot of that in college, just kind of understand what he was playing. And the times that we would hang out, and we'd just be chatting about stuff, and he would tell me a lot of his influences. Obviously, there's a big Jaco influence in there. There's a huge Michael Brecker influence in his playing as well. Joe Zawinul, and even people like Victor Bailey, Lindley Martha, Dominic Di Piazza. Like, he was around a lot of these great, French, European bassists, and also a lot of bassists from Africa who moved to France in like the 80s and the 90s, who played a lot with Joe Zawinul and Joe Zawinul Syndicate. Obviously, there's some Matthew Garrison influence in there as well. But so it was really cool to kind of just understand where he was coming from. So yeah, no, I definitely know Hadrian, and we keep in touch. He's traveling a lot with Hiromi right now, which is really cool. They have a really great band together. So yeah, incredible player. Yeah, turn up the level there. Hey, that's a great question, Red. It's interesting. One of my students yesterday, he sent me a message asking exactly the same thing, and I sent him a whole bunch of recommended listening. So first of all, I think it's incredible that you're listening to Anthony Jackson and you want to know more about him, because Anthony is one of the greatest pioneers of the bass guitar, the inventor of the 6-string contrabass bass guitar. And essentially, this instrument as we know it, 6-string bass guitar, is his concept. He's the inventor of it. Sure, there was a 6-string bass guitar before, but it was the Fender Bass-6, which was just a standard guitar tuning, but an octave lower, right? But this whole thing of being able to go lower than a standard Fender bass and higher as well is his concept right there. So when was Anthony Jackson's prime? It's I think, with Anthony, and first of all, I just want to say, let's all just, send good vibes and positive vibrations to him right now. We all know that there was just a benefit concert for him. He's been out of action for a while, and so let's all just think of him and wish him a speedy recovery, and because he's one of the legends and one of the greatest influences on the bass and how the bass sits in music, right? So thinking of Anthony, his prime is definitely like mid to late 70s onwards. Um, because even as he, got older, there's still like incredible stuff. I would say even, you could take it right to like the mid 2010s, like 2015, or even a little over that. That's the thing. He's always been a very strong force. Some of his greatest recordings throughout the 80s, he says that his favorite recording is an album by Shaka Khan called Naughty. And he's on tracks, and I know this specifically because I was just telling my student this. He's on tracks 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 10. Shaka Khan's Naughty. Incredible album. And the reason why he says that this is his best recorded work was because he initially... no, it wasn't initially. He got asked to record the bass, but when they wanted him to record it, he was going to be out on tour with somebody else, and so they actually delayed the release of this record instead of getting somebody else because they wanted Anthony. They delayed the release so that they could okay, let's wait till Anthony gets back from his tour and then we'll get him to play, to record. And with that, they still, sent him like the music or like a demo and all that. And so he was able to also kind of work on his parts. He was able to take the time. And so he feels that this is his best recorded bass work because he really got to focus and craft it the way he wanted it. And so... Which is amazing. So Shaka Khan's Naughty, a bunch of Al Di Meola's records. So there's Casino. There is he's on Elegant Gypsy. I'm like spacing on the names right now. He's also on because this is the thing, like Al absolutely was all about Anthony on his music. Like that's the sound. It was Anthony and Steve Gadd. Like that's a powerhouse of a rhythm section right there. Those two cats together, like incredible. Him and Steve Gadd, they're also on the soundtrack for The Wiz as well, because I remember when I finally saw The Wiz with my wife, and I was like, that sounds like Anthony right there. There was that signature flanger tone with his jazz bass back then, that he was using a jazz bass. And of course I looked up and it was like Anthony Jackson, Steve Gadd. You know what I mean? So yeah, Elegant Gypsy by Al Di Meola, Casino, Land of the Midnight Sun, Splendido, Hotel. That's some of the highlights, albums that I really love his playing on. And then there's like the Steve Kahn Eyewitness quartet. So Steve Kahn, great guitar player. It's Steve Jordan on drums, and Anthony on bass, and Manolo Bandrina on percussion. Incredible, like really like experimental like interplay. There's still like solid pocket and groove, but it's to a point where like, where is beat one? It's that kind of thing. Like you can feel like, okay, there is a consistent thing, but like I don't know where the top of the phrase is. But like at this point, it's like it doesn't even matter because it just feels and sounds so good. You know what I mean? And then some of my favorite live videos that are on YouTube of Anthony playing. And the first time that I ever discovered Anthony was Lee Ritenour's concert called Live at the Coconut Grove. It's not actually live at the Coconut Grove. Because there used to be a venue called the Coconut Grove, which I think was on the East Coast, that unfortunately got burnt down. But this is actually just live in a studio, but they called it Live at the Coconut Grove. And that was the first time I ever discovered Anthony Jackson. Just incredible. Like, playing this, huge Federa 6-string bass. Check it out. Lee Ritenour, Live at the Coconut Grove. And Anthony has played a lot with Lee as well, a lot of recordings, a lot of live playing. There's some incredible stuff there. There's also a Shaka Khan concert live at the Roxy. It's like 1981. And that's with Anthony, Steve Ferroni on drums. It's like the Brecker Brothers of the horn section. It's a powerhouse of a band. And the funny thing on the whole concert is that, because we all know Anthony for being the dude who sits down and play. I don't think anyone has ever seen him stand up with a strap, but he always sits down. And this is a very large band. It's like horns. They got 3 backing vocalists. There's a drummer, 2 guitar players, 2 keyboard players. And Anthony is just kind of tucked in there in the back, and there's only like a wide angle shot where you see, and you're like, oh, that's Anthony right there. You see this dude sitting down playing a Fender bass. But if you weren't paying attention, you'd be like, oh, they're just using synth bass. But no, you listen and you're like, wait, hang on. That's a bass player, and that is Anthony Jackson. Signature lines, So, and then of course there's stuff with Hiromi and Michel Petrucciani. There's an incredible amount of Anthony Jackson stuff. I think it's definitely worth going on the deep dive. There is also an incredible interview, like just an audio interview of Anthony that drummer Cliff Armand did years ago. That's on YouTube. There's a great interview from Bass Player magazine years ago that is still up on the internet. I know Melvin Davis had posted it on the creation of the 6-string bass, where Anthony talks about the whole process. It's incredible. So go ahead, do a deep dive on Anthony Jackson, but check out those albums first, and you'll be like, oh, okay. One more. There's a great on YouTube, a great live concert, full concert, Grover Washington. All right, and it's with Steve Gadd, Anthony Jackson, Eric Gale, Richard T. It's Ralph McDonald. It's that crew of cats. And there's just pocket for days, incredible. So do that. Yeah. Hey, thank you. I always love exploring harmony, especially over just various changes, seeing what happens and what doesn't happen, or but that's just, it just piques my curiosity when just exploring harmony. So I appreciate the comment. And Stanley, is this Stanley is Stanley Clark? So, whoever you are, Stanley, thank you so much. And what's my opinion of Anthony Jackson's way of playing a 6-string? My opinion is that it's beautiful. It's incredible. He's obviously, and I was talking about this last week with just how I know John Axe was talking about his envelope filters and how it takes time to dial in a sound, and I said that a lot of players would you spend a long time figuring out your sound, what you're trying to make your instrument do, and if that also means modification. So obviously Jaco taking out the frets on his bass, make it a fretless. Stanley discovering the alembic basses and doing the whole like wet dry stereo splitting thing. Alfonso modding his basses. You know what I mean? Using effects. Now with someone like Anthony Jackson, he had a thing where it's just like he was playing along to Jimmy Smith records. Jimmy Smith being the great jazz organist. And usually in a jazz organ trio, there's no bass player. The organ is playing the bass. Now, with an organ bass, it can go down to a low C. Now, obviously, a four-string Fender bass cannot go anywhere near that, right? So Anthony is playing along to these Jimmy Smith records on his four-string, and he's like, oh, like I can't get that low because the organ is taking over. So he started detuning his basses to play lower notes. But it's like, okay, I can play these low notes and all that, but I want to also be able to play high stuff as well. I want to be able to play chords. I want to be able to play melodies in a higher register. But that would mean that if I was to tune my bass higher, then obviously you don't get the low notes. So he thought, well, what if we add more strings? Now there was that 5-string Fender bass that Fender had put out. It was very in the 60s. But the way they had, and it was tuned from E to C. So no low B, it was just E to C, Fender 5-string bass. But it had no range. It literally went to the 15th fret. So meaning that the highest note on that high C string, an E flat, which is the highest note on the G string for a typical 4-string Fender bass. So it really it wasn't helpful at all. And that bass was kind of a flop anyway. Like people were just like, what? No, this is pretty pointless. So Anthony was like, okay, well, and this is like the mid 70s. So he contacted a few luthiers. All right, he went to Carl Thompson, and Carl's like, yeah, I'll give it a go, but if it sucks, it's your fault because it's your idea. That's just the beginning of the story. All right, I recommend that you go find this thing online. All you have to do is just type in Anthony Jackson. The creation of the 6-string bass, all right, and you'll find the whole thing, and he tells the whole story. But going back to the playing, so obviously Anthony was wanting to play low notes, he's wanting to play high notes, right? And so as he got his 6-string basses over the years, he's being able to do like chordal stuff, right? He's able to do like a pedal and do all kinds of counterpoint harmony. And it's just, to me, I see it as a continuation and a progression of how this instrument is played. Obviously, if we look at the earlier on, from like Monk Montgomery through to like Jameson and Carol Kay, Paul McCartney, John Entwistle, and then getting to Larry Graham, Louis Johnson, Stanley Clarke, Alfonso, Jaco, and I know there's a lot of other people there I'm missing, but these are people who have like pushed the boundaries of what this instrument can do, but what they are hearing, what kind of music they are hearing in their heads as to what they are trying to play. And so with the whole thing of like, okay, you've got this bigger range, you can do more things. I can play lines, melody lines. And then the whole thing with Anthony still wanting to retain this whole thing of like, okay, he comes from definitely a James Jamerson kind of background where he's trying to have that kind of muted sound on certain things. And so then the use of the palm mute is where, okay, now we're paying attention to note length and note cutoff. And for me, Anthony is the complete master of that, of note length, note cutoff, and just the placement. And that was something that's where we started to realize as bassists, even more so in recorded music, of like, wow, it's the beginning of the note is very important, but the cutoff of the note is just as important as the beginning, right? So that's why, with Anthony being able to do that, he can precisely cut off the note where he needs to. And that's something that makes him, the way that he is. That's what I love about Anthony. And then on the other side of it, I love how Anthony, through all that, still will use a pick on certain songs, because it's a sound, it's a style, and he's definitely very versatile in that way of like, okay, not just being a fingers kind of dude, but also like, okay, this needs a pick, I'm gonna do it, even on some like real funky stuff as well. So Anthony's playing, I think it's just absolutely impeccable. It's definitely a standard of what you do on the bass guitar. A lot about Anthony is a huge thing. So yeah, I could go on and on about Anthony. That's the thing. I really could. And I even got to meet him once as well. And it was at NAMM show. We're talking about 10 plus years ago. I was playing with Lee Rittenauer at the NAMM. We were playing at the Yamaha Guitar Night. It was myself, Lee on guitar, Sonny Emery on drums, and Patrice Rushin on keys. So, and there's, young me. I'm just like, but the day of that show, I walked past the Federa booth, and Anthony was just sitting there. He's just sitting there, just kind of watching, and I was like, oh my God, that's Anthony Jackson. So I went up to him, and I said, oh, hi, Mr. Jackson. And he like looks up at me like this, like real slowly, and I'm just like, oh, it's like, oh, hi, my name is Ben. I play the bass. And then I figured, because he's just staring at me, like, okay, who's this kid right here, And then I was like, okay, let me just name drop. I'm playing with your good friend Lee Rittenauer tonight at the Yamaha Guitar Night, and he was like, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, young sir. He like put out his hand to like shake my hand and all that, big smile and all that. He's like, yes, Lee is a very good friend of mine, and that's really great that you're getting to play with him. Well done. I said, well, thank you so much. I mean, you're a huge influence on me, and like I also play a 6-string bass, and I am a total believer in. Like, so this is the thing, and I'm gonna, and I want to hear your opinions as well here, okay? So Anthony is someone who is like, okay, from the beginning, the bass guitar, all right? The bass guitar should have been 6 strings, not 4 strings. And the reason why he says that is because, okay, the bass guitar, it comes from the guitar family. Guitar has 6 strings, okay? But originally, Leo Fender, the Fender bass guitar was to be a portable version of the big upright bass, all right? It's tuned the same, 4 strings, all right? Easier to play. You can plug it into an amp and you can hear it, right? And then that was it. Whereas Anthony was like, why was it 4 strings, and why was such limited range? You can't go low, you can't go high with it, you can't play chords. Well, you can play chords on it, but you can't play it in a usable register. So that's his whole thing. I want to hear what people think about that. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Let me know. But I'm someone who agrees with what Anthony was saying. It's like, oh yeah, you know what? It makes sense. It kind of does. So I told him that, and he said, well, yeah, let's just keep that between us. Some people get a little unhappy about that. So it's all good. But anyway, Steve Weingart, what's up, man? How you doing, bro? Yeah, Anthony recorded, Jim Beard Song of the Sun. Yeah, absolutely incredible tune. Jim Beard being one of the great keyboard players and master musicians who unfortunately we lost about a year ago. This is someone who played a lot with Steely Dan. He played a lot with John McLaughlin. I mean, he's played with like almost everybody. But he produced a lot of Mike Stern's records. He produced and he would engineer as well. And of course he would play on it. But Jim Beard, one of the greats. Steve Weingart is one of the great keyboard players as well, like he really is, and I really mean that. The first time I saw Steve, with Dave Weckl at that Drummers Collective DVD 2002, it was just like, oh man, this guy is something else, really is. And now, we played so many gigs together and we've been recording each other's music, which is so cool. So, Steve, my man, Fretboard Focus, what's up, John? How you doing, bro? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Soul music, it's Jameson. That's right. You're playing soul music, it's Jameson indeed. That's one of the most. That's also. That's a standard of how you play the bass, right? What's Stanley saying? 6-string does make sense because like 4-string is just too high to play low notes, though. Too low to play high notes. 4-strings kind of limits the playing, in my opinion. I mean, sure, and that's what Anthony was thinking. And look, there's that whole argument of like, oh, Jaco only needed 4 strings, because when Jaco was playing, there really was only 4 strings. That's the thing. Sure, in the 80s. 5 strings was starting to kind of become a thing. And Jaco did play around with a 5-string. He had a 5-string like acoustic bass, but it was tuned E to C. But we never saw him play that. He didn't. Obviously, he just stuck with his Fenders because that was his thing. But I've heard some interviews where someone asked him, do you play a 5-string bass? And he said, yeah, I do. I have one at home, but I'm still waiting for a string company to make a decent high C string. So that's cool to know that that's how, he was, he was onto that. He was following that. I remember a few years ago when I was hanging with John Patitucci at one of my gigs, and he was talking about Jaco because I'd asked him, I was like, did you ever get to meet Jaco? And he, told me his whole Jaco story and all that. And it was before a show with the Electric Band in New York, and Jaco was actually hanging out. And this is like mid-'80s. This is like right, beginning of Electric Band. And John had already gotten his Ken Smith 6-string. And, Jaco was like, well, let me see your bass, man. It's like, okay, he showed Jaco his bass. And he said Jaco did his thing on the 6-string bass. He was doing his thing and said, it's like, this is great, man. I'm going to have to get one of these one day. Maybe, maybe he was going to be a 6-string player. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's like it's what you do with your instrument. Whether you play a 4-string or 3-string, 6-string, 10-string, just play music. You're using a tool because you have an idea, you have a sound. So whatever your vision is, you use your tool. But it's still, in my opinion, it should have been 6-string from the beginning. So there you go. Yeah, no, that's not a widely shared story. That's his thing that he told me, which is really cool. And it's and I even asked John. I was like, "Did you learn a lot of Jaco stuff?" Because in John's playing, you don't really hear a lot of Jaco. And he said, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I transcribed all of that stuff." But he said the thing would have been easy to, because there were at that time there was a lot of like Jaco, like yeah, people like copying Jaco and imitating him doing that thing. And he said, I would have just fallen into that. And he said, yeah, he didn't want to. And of course, when he got the 6-string bass, then he said, okay, then I've got a thing that I'm trying to do. I mean, he's trying to play like saxophone, like horn lines on his bass, right? So that's, that was his kind of vision, but still he's channeling a lot of his like bass playing influences, especially in electric band. He had to do quite a lot of slap, and he's really his John's slap influences are Marcus Miller, Larry Graham, and Will Lee. That's what he told me when we were talking about that a few months ago. And he said, yeah, Marcus was really, my guy, just because he said when he had to play with David Sanborn a bunch of times, he's playing Marcus Miller bass lines, and he's playing it on a jazz bass and all that. So he had to get that sound and that feel. So there's definitely a lot of that going on. Just play music. Yeah, man. And we love to play music, right? What do you think of people who say, why don't you play the guitar? Look, I'll say this. First of all, it's now to a point where it's just funny because it's just so stupid that someone even has to say that. But it's also saying, like, tell me how closed-minded you are about music without telling me that you're very closed-minded. That's what it is. And you know what? Like, sure, that is high, but it's not like this, it's not in that register. Now, if you were to get a different, did I put that on correctly? All right, that's my wife's guitar. I want to make sure it's not going to fall off. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that doesn't fall off. This is the thing. It's like we're playing up here. Like, sure, that's going to be in a high like tenor register, but the way I see it with guitar, that's more of a soprano register, and tenor and soprano. Also, because it's thinner strings on the guitar, so it's not going to be as full as it is, on a high C string. That's the thing. When you play chords, it's like, sure, it's nice. But it's nice and full. You don't get that with a guitar. Sorry, guitar players. I mean, I love you, but, it's like, it's totally different. And also, why don't you just play guitar? Because I don't want to. I want to play bass. I want to be able to go between playing this to playing this. Can you do that on a guitar? No. You could play like a little groove on here, but it's not going to sound like big and full. Like it does right here. That's the thing. And sure, there is the piccolo bass that Stanley Clarke invented, which does utilize like guitar, like the thinness of like guitar strings. But the specific purpose of that instrument was to just play melodies and solos, not necessarily play bass, because it's not going to be in the bass register. Well, why couldn't he just play guitar? Because he don't want to. He doesn't play guitar. He plays the bass guitar. All right? He plays bass. So he wants to take an instrument where he can play it like this, but it's going to be an octave higher, right? So that's what that is. I see the comments going off here. What's feel? Yeah, just like Jeff Berlin always said, he had to start listening to Jaco. I mean, sure, I get it. But, his Jaco influence is very ingrained in his playing. Same thing with someone like Bunny Brunel as well. They listen to a lot of Jaco, and it's in there. And to Ezio, weren't you in the stream of someone had, I don't know what that is, but it's like, no, do I know you? Yeah, do we know you guys? This man is crazy at bass, don't you think, Stanley? Hey, we're all, crazy in our ways, right? But yeah, the upper range of a 6-string bass is just absolutely beautiful. And I mean, I love even the upper range on a 7-string bass as well. And I've considered, wanting to maybe check out a 7-string bass, because Ibanez they have 7-string basses, a BTB. But I don't think I'm ready for that. I think, I'm very happy and comfortable with what I have and what I'm doing. So that's the thing. Anybody here play a 7-string bass or try a 7-string bass here? So let me know. Yes, Charlie Hunter is the only guitarist who can do that. Okay, so yes. Now, Charlie Hunter, he's playing a guitar-bass hybrid instrument, all right? And that's what he used on, like D'Angelo's Voodoo, like the... It's this instrument where it's like the higher 4 strings of a guitar, and then the bottom strings are the first 3 of a bass guitar. And he has it so that there's a pickup for the bass side, and then there's a pickup for the guitar side. And he has the signal split, so the bass side is going into a bass amp, and the guitar side is going into a guitar amp. So kind of like a Chapman stick. But because he's doing the whole Joe Pass, he's doing that whole thing where it's like, okay, he's a guitar and the bass at the same time. And his bass playing is crazy when he's doing that, because for the longest time I thought that was just Pino Palladino playing bass. So, but I was like, oh wait, no, on Spanish Joint, that's Charlie Hunter, and that's my wife over there saying, no more basses right now, please. But I know one of my basses is at my parents' house, because my dad wanted to hang on to it for a while. So I have one spot that's open here, but I don't know, I'm pretty cool with what I have. I've got incredible instruments. Steve's saying, if you want to discuss possibilities of range of instruments, I suggest check into Stravinsky. Absolutely. You want to, that is something where the Igor Stravinsky used the whole range of an instrument, because it's like, why not? It's available. Why not? And that's something, when with Billy Childs as well, playing with Billy, he writes his compositions where he writes for the whole range of your instrument. So if you're an upright bass player, he will write for the whole range of the upright bass. So meaning if you look at the end of the fingerboard, he'll write for notes all the way up there too. And you're like, ah! But anyway, talking about D'Angelo, what do you think about Raphael Sadiq's bass playing? Great. I haven't heard a lot of Raphael's playing, but what I have heard, it's like it's fantastic. Nice tone, nice playing. Obviously, dude knows what he's doing. Great feel. Yeah, I can't complain about his bass playing. I love it. The first time I heard about Raphael Sadiq was in a it was an old bass player magazine issue where he was on the front cover, and I was like, oh, who's this cat right here? And it was cool. So yeah, I think he's an incredible player. Um, Another player that I think who's a great producer, Terry Lewis. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Terry Lewis is a fantastic bassist. Um, you want to? I recommend listening to Cheryl Lynn's Encore. You want to hear some great bass work? That's Terry Lewis playing some incredible bass playing. Is Bass Player Magazine still going on? That's a good question, Red. The Bass Player Magazine that I grew up on is no more. All right. I remember a few years ago, it was sold to another company. I think over in the UK, and I'm not sure if it's still in print, but there is the people who were from the original Bass Player Magazine. They have their publication called Bass Magazine. It's just called Bass Magazine. There's also Bass Musician Magazine as well, but the popular one, Bass Player Magazine, and I still have a lot of old issues from like the mid 2000s. They're all at my parents' house. I should next time I'm over there, I should try and find them. Well, we still have them. But I remember like I used to be able to get them from our central library growing up. So, and they kept a lot of the back issues, so stuff from the 90s and all that, which was really cool. And this is how I got to know about bass players, just certain names and all that. This is how I got to discover and remember these names too, so that when I moved to LA and I saw that, someone like Ethan Farmer is playing here with Stanley Randolph or whatever, or Braylon Lacey with Erykah Badu. Like these names really, Reggie Hamilton. These names really stuck in my head, and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. And when I tell them like, oh yeah, I saw your name or I read an article about you in Bass Player Magazine years ago, and they're like, whoa, that's crazy. So, if you can find any past issues of Bass Player Magazine, they're really worth the read. They're really great. I absolutely loved those magazines. Just incredible. Isaiah Shockey, Pino, Chris Dave is dangerous. Yes, that is a very dangerous trio right there of musicians. Incredible lineup, and some great stuff on there. I want to let you guys know real quick, just another piece of equipment that I've started using, actually by Ibanez. They just put out trust me, this is not an ad or anything. I just want to let you know because I think it's so cool. And yes, I am an Ibanez player, but they're not telling me to push this. This is just me telling you guys about this. This is it's just an effects power unit. So similar to like the DC Power Brick or the Voodoo Labs power unit to power your pedals, Ibanez now have one called the Power Stoke, and it has like 6 different power outputs on it. and 2 of them you can adjust the voltage on them. And what I actually am doing here, so I'm powering all my pedals with it. And it's real small and light. It's like that small. It's amazing. What I'm doing is I have one of my old daisy chains from like a 1 spot, and I'm actually powering 6 pedals from just 1 power input, so that I have a whole bunch of other ones that are free, because I have some other pedals that require 12 volts. And it is incredible. It's really clean. And if you use a lot of pedals and you're having problems with like power issues, like it's kind of, you're getting a hum and all that, I think you might find this to be useful for what you do. I've been enjoying it right now. I'm gonna play some stuff. I was gonna I was actually messing around over the changes of a tune that I wrote when I was like 16, and I'm just gonna like, nope, wrong pedal. I was gonna just play around on the changes of this. That is, and using the octave pedal, because the octave pedal for me is something where you can really get into that almost like synth bass kind of vibe of things. Yeah, you know what I mean. Let me find it here. Did I? And so, let me just. Oh, I should make sure that I'm doing the sound correctly as well. I should remind myself. All right, let me just make sure, because I don't think I double check these settings, so I'm going to play along to a track, and y'all can't hear the track. It's going to be hilarious like last time. Okay, no, I don't have it set like that. Okay, hold on. Okay. Now, you should be able to hear. I'm going to play a track. I'm going to have to put my headphones on to hear the track. So these are some real cool changes. I just kind of started revisiting it lately. But I'm just gonna play just groove, play bass line for a bit. Just because I did a bit of soloing earlier. I'm like, it's always nice to just play some time. This was a tune. There's no melody on it. It's just changes. But I'm just gonna groove. All right. It's called Star Hunters. Of course, I was 16 when I named it. Let me know if you can hear the track, please. Track's a little low. And that's the end of the track. The pedal that I'm using is the EBS Octabass. And I love it because it just has such beautiful tracking and such a natural sound. And it can still track very low without glitching out. See, now it starts to... even for like if you were to play up there like really like high and to play solos, it's really cool. So the EBS octave pedal, and then it's a totally different tone to the very popular Boss OC2. And I used to have a Boss pedal years ago, and it was great. I just for me it didn't track too well for what I was doing, and I wasn't going for that kind of that electronica like kind of like dubstep kind of sound with the low octave. I wanted something a little more natural. So if I was to turn off the dry signal and this is just the wet, just the octave below, it's very natural. It definitely has like a very smooth kind of synth bass kind of vibe to it, which was what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for something that was very affected, because later on in the effects chain, if I wanted to add like an envelope filter or something, or even like a fuzz, I could. You really need to have like a big like rig to really understand, like to hear and feel that like fundamental. Like when you have it when you're going through like a big PA system, it sounds incredible with like subs and all that. It's just such a beautiful tone. But yeah, so essentially, I mean, first of all, I just wanted to kind of just play over those changes, because I was just jamming it earlier, and also just to play a bit of using the octave pedal. It's really cool to like play like some of these. Okay, who's still here? Who's still here? It's great because there was like 20 people here and I was like 3 left. That's fine. Sorry about that. I had to restart my whole computer. It just froze on me. Um, it's what happens when you use the McDonald's Wi-Fi. Yeah, near your house. It just and you're trying to like stream. Actually, it was Starbucks. That's what I was trying to use. Um, Everyone was at the Starbucks was trying to do their live streams as well. Um, so that's what happens. Anyway, I apologize. Thank you. That's the first time that's ever happened. My computer was just freaking out, and it just needed to give it a restart. So thank you everybody for holding tight. I appreciate it. And yeah, what I was talking about source audio pedals. Um, and I've only tried them at the NAMM show and at Bass Player Live. And there was a dude I went to Cal Arts with who actually worked for, I don't know if he still works there at Source Audio Pedals, but I tried them out. They're incredible. I don't have any Source Audio pedals, but what I tried out was really cool. They had that thing where like it's like a Bluetooth thing. It has like a ring on it, and like you go wow 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 or something. Like I tried that out. It was fun, but I should have a look to it again. But the pedals I have, doing everything I need them to do, which is really cool. And they're all a mixture of pedals. Everything cool here. Just saw something. Okay, yeah, everything's cool. I think sometimes I know what I know what I should have done before I started the live stream this morning. Generally, I do it like an hour before. I usually just give the computer a restart, but for some reason I didn't. I just forgot to do that. So I should remember to just do that every time, because just to run this, like, yeah, I'm running full audio. I'm using OBS as my streaming software, and I'm using, obviously, to stream and all that. It takes quite a bit of computer power and bandwidth and all that, so I can understand how sometimes the computer just might get a little angry. That's how it is. I'm gonna play some more music because playing music is fun, and we all love music, and I absolutely love music. I'm gonna play something by my good friend Danny Janklow, who is an incredible saxophone player, and this is a tune of his that is from a live recording, a live album that he put out a few years ago, and it's actually it's actually on streaming services. It's a live album. If you look up Danny Janklow, what's going on here? You'll see like a live album that we did, and it's the very last show that I ever played at the Blue Whale. And before we all went into lockdown, and then a year later the Blue Whale unfortunately closed. But I'm really glad that this show was captured, and it was recorded. It was a great night. But this is a tune of his that I just love playing. Really kind of high energy tune. This has Gene Coy on drums, one of my favorite drummers. We've played a lot of gigs together. Josh Nelson is on piano, and Nick Mancini is on vibraphone. This is the Elevation Band, but this is a tune of Danny's called Worlds Collide. So let me just make sure my audio settings are good, because I know it would have might have changed. Let's double check. No, it's still the same. Okay, it's good. All right, so it should be all right. Woo! I don't know, maybe because we were talking about 6-string bass and all that, so that way, like, it was just like, nope, cut it off. Yeah, lots of great memories at the Blue Whale. And Steve, you played with me on one of my last shows there with the last show I did with my band. Steve Weingart played there. Also, Tara Deva, my wife, she sang as well. On the show. Exactly, got the whale emojis. All right, so this is Worlds Collide. Here we go. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you sticking around and being patient and just making this such a great and enjoyable time and experience. So here we go. Let's play some music. Tons of fun. And that's what I loved with this band, Elevation Band, is that we could just like take it anywhere. Like that, especially that, you know, that middle part there where it was just like kind of me and the saxophone, where we're just playing. Like there's no, we have an idea of like, okay, where the time might be, but you just kind of, you just follow each other. It's a conversation. It's a language. It doesn't have to be like, oh, okay, I'm behind the beat or whatever. No, like you listen, you just follow. That's the beauty of it. That's what we would do. Is sometimes we'd just be, especially in that middle section, there was that where the piano and the vibes were trading. Like we would just be playing, and then we could just throw it all up in the air. Just be like, and then we could just come back down and just be like, okay, we get back on. That's something that's a lot of the great improvisation groups have done, you know, like Herbie's groups, you know, Miles, of course, where it's just like things don't have to always be like strict, like especially when playing this kind of music where you're like, okay, you're like just bogged into thing. Yes, you have a concept of obviously the time feel of where the time is, but if you listen, you can always line up with each other. That's the cool thing. Whatever you say, fam, is a question. I have a question after you play this track. I have harmonics down, but can't seem to get artificial harmonics at all. Yeah, you know, so with artificial harmonics, this is the thing. What's interesting, if you're gonna play, is there's two parts: is the right, the picking hand and the fretting hand. So, obviously, there's getting the how do you pluck it? So the thing you can do first without this hand is just with this one, and I typically use my thumb. Some people use their thumb and index finger. For me, the best sound I get, let me make sure I'm in a good view here. I'll just angle this a bit. The best sound, hey, thanks Nick Granville, good to see you, brother. Appreciate you, man. The best sound for me is using my third finger. So thumb and the third finger. So without like fretting, just get this. And what I'm doing is like I'm letting my thumb sit there, and I'm plucking the string behind it with my third finger. So you get this pop, pop, pop sound. And obviously there are harmonics, like natural harmonics all throughout the instrument, you know? Right? And so what I'm doing is like I'm moving my hand accordingly to like where the harmonics are. So then, okay, how does it translate when, okay, playing a note here? So here's the thing to look at. Is like, okay, if I'm playing on the 12th fret here, like on the G, if I'm playing on the 12th fret, and if I play a artificial harmonic, you can kind of hear it, but it's not really there. But if I move my hand closer, my thumb closer to the 24th fret, which is an octave above the 12th fret. Now, some of you don't have 24 frets, which is totally fine, but you would put your thumb where the 24th fret would be because there's a harmonic there. Right? Now, you can get the different partials by going on the different harmonics that are throughout. So you really need to just kind of move your hand around there. Now, okay, so what about playing? So we got that, but what if I was to play this note? Oh, that's not coming through. So what I have to do is, okay, since that was playing a G at the 24th fret, which is an octave above this 12th fret, and if I'm going to play this A on the 14th fret, it means that I also need to shift my thumb to roughly where an octave above the 14th fret would be. And that's where I'm going to get that, right? And same thing if I'm to move. Now I could do the same thing on these other partials. And that's something that, like Jocko, Stanley Clarke does it a lot too. Jocko, obviously Steve Bailey is, kind of the cat nowadays who's really great at doing this. That's just second nature to him. But like for doing, and then when he did it up the octave, he moved up to the higher partial. So that's the thing, is like, okay, this hand and this hand, all right, they need to be coordinated with each other. But again, if you want to just get this hand, and I suggest try how it sounds with your index finger I'm not really into it. It also just feels a little uncomfortable for me. Middle finger, not so much. Third finger kind of has the point attack that I'm going for. So that's why I do it with my third finger. So just get this down first. And then bring in the notes. Here's another little cool thing that you can do as well. Obviously, it's like, okay, what if I want to play here, which you still can. You just do it where it would be like, okay, now it's 2 octaves above, right? Right? But here's another thing you can do. So say if I was to play this B, I can tap exactly an octave above, and you get this really cool little tapping harmonic. So I'm playing exactly the same thing here, but up an octave. I'm still fretting the notes. All right, with the envelope filter. Let me. Let me put the other envelope filter on. A little harder with the other one because that one has a slower attack. So, and because this is such an instant thing, so it takes, you don't hear like the quality of it. But with the other one that is more instant, the so there, I hope that's helpful for doing false harmonics. It's a really cool sound. It really is a really cool just thing to use when coming up with textures. And that's the thing. It's like this instrument can just do so much. You know, it really can. And when you add little extended techniques like this, you can really just take the instrument even further. So, well, this is all the time that we have. And because, you know, my computer froze and had to restart, so that's why I kind of, you know, gave a little extra time, reclaimed the time. But I want to thank you all for just being here and coming out and just jumping on here and just joining the conversation. It's been such a great one today. I mean, they're all really great, but I just love how we can just connect like this and just nerd out and just have fun. This is why I do this, because I just love to just foster this kind of community and environment. Especially, we have a lot of things going on in our lives and all things that are happening globally. And if, you know, once a week I can just have this space to just talk about bass, this is what I love to do. Tara College represent. Spell it properly, man. Come on, bro. And so again, thank you all for jumping on here. I really appreciate you all. Good to see some regular faces, and also nice to see some cats that who I'm just seeing on here for the first time, or maybe you've been checking it out this whole time. The last bunch of streams I've done, but are only just popping up in the chat. So I really appreciate it, and again, thank you for being patient, you know, with my little technical glitch there. I really appreciate you guys just sticking in there. But thank you again. If there's anything else I can do to help you with your musical journey, your bass playing journey, like feel free to reach out to me. I'd have one-on-one bass coaching and mentoring programs that are just tailored specifically for whatever you're trying to work on. So feel free to reach out to me through my website or just through my social media page. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell on this thing. And I have all the links to my courses and all that in the description box here. So if you want to learn how to play chords and all that, the link is there. I recommend that you check that out. As well as the free course that I have too, which is very helpful. So thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate your support. It's so great to see you all. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. Be safe wherever you are in the world. Take care. Have fun with your instrument. Try to play your instrument at least every day, even if it's for 10 minutes. Do something on your instrument, all right? And just have fun. Enjoy your art, enjoy music, and enjoy yourself. All right? Take care, everybody. All right, everybody. Take care. See you next time.